the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Welcome, friends, to the 88th episode of Crime and Punishment, a legal podcast, the official podcast for the Invictus Law Firm, a criminal defense law firm in Orlando, Florida, the website for which is augustusinvictus.com, and that is me, yours truly, the host of this program. I am posting augustusinvictus.com to the chat here in YouTube so that you can go all the way down to the bottom and join the mailing list, because that's how we talk to everybody. I've also got to plug the bloody, merchandise store. This is part of my job here. This is legal marketing, so bear with me. There you go. So I've done my job. It's in the text, in the comments on YouTube. So, what a coincidence that the 88th episode of Crime and Punishment, after how long? We've been doing this for 3 years now. 3 years this program's been going. The 88th episode is upon us, and it's about the Rise Above movement. What are the chances? An ornithologist is saying, free Rob Rundo. My man with the name is saying, nice to catch you live. Good to see you, buddy. The Rundo appeal is outrageous. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk all about that case. I only have a brief time today. It's a long story, but we're gonna have to leave on time, I'm afraid. So let's get right into it. Rundo was released. Believe it or not. Case dismissed. Let's back the trolley up, though. So going back to 2017, right? Every level of government ever since 2017 has been up in arms because it was just this amazing demonstration of resistance to global tyranny. You had these rallies all across the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast. Protests against everything going on. And famously, or infamously, the Antifa was bashing people with bricks in the head, bike locks. They were setting cities on fire. They were attacking the elderly. And, a few people said, that's enough of that. We have to have security at these events. We've got to fight back. Well, that is a capital crime. You can't fight back. You just have to let the Antifa terrorize you. Everybody knows that now. But in 2017, we hadn't quite gotten that memo yet. So the feds have been after the Rise Above movement ever since. A year after Charlottesville, a full year plus, so that was August, September, October, a year and 2 months after Charlottesville, the feds came out with this amazing show of force against the far right. They arrested 8 men in the Rise Above movement. They dragged 4 of them clear across the country to Virginia to stand trial in Charlottesville for violation of the Anti-Riot Act in Charlottesville at the Unite the Right rally. 4 other men stayed in California but were taken to Los Angeles. Again, for violation, allegedly, of the Anti-Riot Act, which was passed against leftist violence back in the 70s. Because of, they were arrested for Berkeley, Huntington Beach, these rallies that had happened in California in 2017 leading up to Charlottesville. So 8 men, military action came down on them, dragged them to these 2 different courtrooms. Well, one guy, I don't know how they just didn't get this guy. It's a complicated story, but that is how I got involved in the case. They alleged that he was a fugitive, alleged that he was armed and dangerous, had a manhunt for this guy. The feds had a manhunt, dragged all the sheriffs into this nonsense, made it a media case. This guy is armed and dangerous, and he's, wanted for this federal crime, violating the Anti-Riot Act, so on and so forth, and ridiculous. Now it was ridiculous, but back then, it's a huge deal. So I flew out to California after talking with the DOJ. Asked the guy, look, man, I'm going out there. I made contact with the guy. I'm going to take him down to Los Angeles. Can you cancel this whole bolo, I forget what they were calling it at the time, but basically the manhunt going on, like you're going to get somebody shot. Can you please cancel this? I'm going to get him. I'm going to take him to Los Angeles. And the guy said, no, can't do that. But I wouldn't want anybody getting shot. I wouldn't want one of these sheriffs who think this guy is dangerous, accidentally shooting him before you get to him. Like this implicit threat that if we find this guy before you find him, we're going to kill him. I would hate for that to happen. So you better get him to Los Angeles, and you better do it now. That's how I came to be involved with that case. Flew out to California, took him down there to Los Angeles. That was not Robert Rundo. That was Aaron Eason. May he rest in peace. Aaron has since passed away. Completely unrelated to anything political. So that's how I got involved in the case in any event. We started the legal network that we had back in 2018 to 2019 because of the Rise Above movement case. My involvement with everything, just to fast forward to the end, was terminated upon my own arrest. A lot of people have asked, why would the FBI be interested in a domestic violence case in nowhere, South Carolina? What does that have to do with the FBI? A lot of people have asked me that. I mean, at the risk of sounding conspiratorial, that is the universe of cases we were working on back at that time. That might explain why the FBI would be interested in a domestic violence case. In any event, the case went on. Eventually, the case was dismissed. They said that it was unconstitutional. It was a violation of free speech for them to charge these guys under the Anti-Riot Act. Case dismissed. Rundo goes free. He leaves America. And who can blame him? He won. He's not beholden to be here. If he wants to go to Romania or Transylvania or Cuba or wherever he wants to go, who cares? He's a free man. And so he did. He left the country. Feds used this to say that he was this international man of mystery, an arch criminal, hiding out in all these hostile countries. You'll hear the word combat ready, combat ready, combat ready. You'll hear it over and over and over again from the feds today. When we read these opinions and motions in this case, and we're only reading the ones from like the past 24 hours. We're not getting into all of the appeals, the appeal I was on, the trial level stuff from back in 2018. We're not even getting into all that. All we're talking about today is the past 24 hours, which has been itself just the most amazing roller coaster. But this is a near 7-year saga now that these guys have been dealing with. So, as I said, he left the country. Well, eventually they refiled the case. Even though it was dismissed because it was unconstitutional, it was reinstated. I believe by the appellate court. At some point, the feds appealed it. They reinstated the indictment. Well, now, as of yesterday, it is dismissed because it is selective prosecution. All right, the judge said, well, all these grounds you try to dismiss it on, I'm not listening to that. But it's amazing that the feds are after these guys so hard, tracking them all over the world, doing everything they can to bring these guys in, because they're saying that they were traveling to these rallies to stifle other people's free speech. What an amazing claim. But the judge points out, even if that's true, let's just say it is true, the Antifa were doing the same or worse. Why are they not being prosecuted? And so we are dismissing this because it is selective enforcement, selective prosecution by the DOJ. And by the way, I don't think Mr. Rundo should spend another minute in jail. Released him. Released him immediately. The feds, literally within minutes, and they say this in their emergency appeal, within minutes of that order from the judge, they filed the emergency appeal within minutes, because they were so hard on about Rundo not being released. Well, he was released. But they went to the friendly appellate court. The appellate court reversed this decision, and now God knows what's about to happen. But I bet my money there's another manhunt on for Rob Rundo right now. And God bless him. I've met a lot of people, thousands of people doing this job, being in the right wing. Met so many people, coast to coast. There are a handful of people who are just like forces of nature, right? Like you meet someone like David Duke, and he's just, what a great guy. What a great man. Meet someone like Richard Spencer, like so bloody charismatic. Even the people who hate him can't help but like the guy. Personally, I don't have anything bad to say about Richard. I love that guy. What a great guy. Rob Rundo is of his own breed. He is one of those guys that is a force of nature. Can't help but love the guy. What a charismatic guy. Young man, super put together, and he is the symbol of everything the feds hate. The request just got on the appellate judge's desk. They didn't even give it serious thought before rubber stamping their reverse to release Rob. Yeah, I know, because of what the feds are alleging, which we're about to get into right now. Florida Treasurer says, hello, Augustus. Just tuned in. Beautiful sunny day in Central Florida today. It sure is. Sure is. Cold this morning, but it's nice outside, nice weather. Ninth Circuit will reverse and SCOTUS will refuse to hear it. Yeah. That's true. SCOTUS ain't stepping in for the likes of Rob Rundo or the Rise Above movement. These are the hard cases. These aren't the political capital that the Supreme Court justices need right now. And in their defense, once you overturn Roe v. Wade and half the country wants you executed, I completely understand not going to bat for, Nazis. They used half a century's worth of political capital in a single day. So they do have to tread lightly. I understand that. Let's go to opinion. Do we have that? Let's look at the final paragraph here. The conclusion of the judge yesterday, when deciding to release Rundo immediately, was this. When announcing this case, the United States Attorney for the Central District of California at the time explained this case was initiated because of an orchestrated effort to squelch free speech as members of the conspiracy traveled to multiple locations to attack those who hold different views. And he cites this press release from October 4th, 2018, right when they were arrested. Press release titled, 4 local members of white supremacy group face federal charges and attacks at political rallies across California. And then he gives the the link for that. The problem in this case, though, is that sentiment equally describes Antifa and other extremist far-left groups. Neither RAM, that is the Rise Above movement, nor Antifa have the right to violently assault their political opponents. Although defendants' motion to dismiss for vagueness and failure to state an offense is denied, their motion to dismiss for selective prosecution is granted. What an explosive decision. And I have it on good authority. There were people there in the courtroom. The feds were visibly, I mean the FBI, not just the DOJ, the FBI agents were visibly upset about this, visibly mad that the judge was dismissing the case and releasing Rundo. And of course they are. Of course they're emotional. They make these things very personal. They pretend that this is all about stifling free speech. But of course, like the judge said, you never arrest Antifa for doing that. And they do it explicitly, and they brag about it on their websites. They pretend it's about free speech. They pretend it's about, well, we at the FBI, we don't take sides. We don't want anybody to commit acts of violence. Nothing political here at all. We're just enforcing the law. They pretend that, and then they only arrest one side of the equation. Typically, the side defending themselves. They pretend that this is about law and order, and then they go after the very people who supported law and order. There's obviously a very personal animus here. You'll hear these guys who are ex-military, and now they're training SWAT. And they couch it in terms of some crazy white supremacist man is behind that door, you gotta blast it. They have this brainwashed personal animus against anybody accused of being a Nazi or white supremacist. All you gotta do is open your ears to it. It's everywhere. All levels of law enforcement, all levels of the military, they are trained to have a personal hatred. Kind of like, you're going to Vietnam and you are trained to hate the expletive deleted that we can't say without getting banned from YouTube. But you dehumanize the enemy. That's exactly what is being done here on American streets now. Anybody who's a Nazi, a white nationalist, a white supremacist, those people are the enemy. They're not human. And they take it very personally when someone like Judge Carney dismisses a clearly bogus case that has already been dismissed once before. And points out, you guys claim all these things, but you never actually arrest the Antifa, who are the instigators every single time. Visibly mad, these guys. So, what do they do in response? Literally minutes later, hold on a second. That's the judge's opinion. Come on. Here we go. Government's emergency motion to stay Defendant Rundo's release and continue his detention pending appeal. Emergency motion under Circuit Rule 27-3. Relief needed by February 22nd, that's today, 2024. So they have the certificate. Facts showing the existence and nature of the emergency. Here we go. Just right off the bat. Defendant appellee Robert Rundo is the leader of a combat-ready white supremacist group who is charged with conspiracy to violate the Anti-Riot Act and violating the Anti-Riot Act in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2101. The district court, the Honorable Cormac J. Carney, dismissed Rundo's indictment, and this court reversed. Before this court's opinion, Rundo relocated to Eastern Europe, where he lived under false identification documents. The FBI located him in Romania, and the United States secured his extradition. So, before the court's opinion, so that was on appeal. Like I said, he was a free man. To my knowledge, no travel restrictions. So he left. And then the appellate court came back and said, no, it's not unconstitutional. Why don't you go ahead and reinstate that charge you had against him. So they go find him this international manhunt, drag him out of a gym in Romania, and bring him back to the United States. Super sordid affair. To continue, today, on remand, yesterday, on remand, the district court dismissed the indictment again. Can you believe the nerve of the district court? The court also ordered Rundo released forthwith and denied the government's motion for a stay of that release order. Because Rundo presents a grave risk of flight, as well as a danger to the community, the district court's forthwith release order should be reversed and Rundo's release should be stayed pending any government appeal from the district court's latest order dismissing the indictment. Due to the district court's order, Rundo will be released imminently if the Bureau of Prisons has not already released him, at which point he will be under no bond conditions or travel restraints. Absent an immediate order staying his release, Rundo is very likely to flee the United States, which risks vitiating the government's right to appeal from the district court's latest order dismissing the indictment. Too bad. So sad. Let's see. Timeliness. Notification of opposing counsel. Rundo opposes, naturally. All right. Emergency stay motion. Introduction. Defendant Robert Rundo, a leader of the combat-ready white supremacist militant group RAM, Rise Above movement, is charged with conspiracy to violate the Anti-Riot Act and rioting in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2101. The district court previously dismissed the indictment on the ground that the Anti-Riot Act violated the First Amendment. On appeal, this court reversed and reinstated the indictment. Upon remand, on February 21st, 2024, the district court again dismissed the indictment, this time on grounds of selective prosecution, and ordered defendant Rundo's forthwith release. The court also denied the government's request for a stay of its release order. The government filed a notice of appeal minutes later. This court should stay Rundo's release order during the pendency of the government's appeal because defendant is an extremely serious flight risk and a danger to the community. Now, please, in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, in the past, what has this been? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. In the past 5.5 years that this case has been going on, they haven't brought a single charge against Rundo. This combat-ready white supremacist who's such a grave risk to the community. I can't think of a single case against him brought by the FBI or anybody else where he's just going around beating up people. Think of how amazing it would be if the feds put this kind of time and effort into hunting down the Antifa, dragging them back to the United States from foreign countries to stand trial, 5 years after, 6 years after the alleged crime they committed. Imagine how crazy that would be. Just think of, forget 2017. Just think of 2020. All these people burning down America. I was in jail at the time. Didn't really get to see the whole thing happen. But pretty famously, they burned down all these cities. Imagine if the feds took this kind of interest in prosecuting all those people for the political terrorism, the expressed and explicit political terrorism they committed during that period of time. Could you imagine that? So, is it really that outrageous for a judge to say this is selective prosecution? You charged no Antifa with violation of the Anti-Riot Act. Amazingly, in 2017, while they were throwing bricks at people's heads, beating up the elderly, setting fire to things, punching people all over the place, taking weapons everywhere they went. Not a single one of them was charged. Not a single one of them was ever charged under the Anti-Riot Act. I would love to see their arguments for why that's not selective prosecution. I'd love to see it. Can't wait. Heard the judge is retiring in May, so that may explain his boldness in this decision, says Freedom Falcon. Yes. Yes. He's apparently also being investigated by this same appellate court that just reversed this decision for some nonsense in another case, completely unrelated case, something to do with COVID. I don't know. But the leftist journalists are all up in arms about this guy releasing Rundo and saying, well, he's already being investigated for this, that, the other. Well, he's going to retire in May. So, yeah. Why not do the right thing? You know? You're on your way out, do something heroic. Where is this? Here we go. Facts. Let's see how factual this is. The magistrate judge ordered defendant detained as both a serious flight risk and a danger. Defendant has many foreign contacts and has traveled extensively to foreign countries to evade arrest. First, prior to his indictment, defendant traveled to Ukraine, Germany, and Italy to meet with members of white supremacist groups. Prior to his indictment, how was he evading arrest if he hadn't been indicted and had no reason to believe he would be indicted? How is that evading arrest? I'd like to hear more. Second, defendant fled the United States on multiple occasions prior to his initial arrest. All right, here we go. After 4 of defendant's co-conspirators were arrested on October 2nd, 2018, defendant booked a flight to Ukraine. Defendant was located in London a few days later and sent back to the United States. I remember that. So that actually is a fact. Subsequently, defendant booked a flight to Moscow on October 10th, 2018. But after being denied boarding, he crossed the border into Mexico and flew to Cuba, Guatemala, and then El Salvador, where he was extradited back to the United States. What a guy. What a guy. Finally, most recently, following the district court's prior dismissal order, defendant again fled the United States, utilized false identification documents, and was ultimately arrested in Romania and extradited to the United States. Man, what would possess somebody to do that? When you know you're going to get a totally fair trial from a totally neutral Department of Justice who has no political axe to grind against you, who's totally going to prosecute the people who were attacking all the people that you were defending. Why would you have anything to fear? Why would you ever leave the United States? His indictment, the whole case is dismissed because it's unconstitutional. It gets reinstated. It gets dismissed again because you have obviously engaged in selective prosecution. You file an emergency appeal to have him placed back in jail, to prevent him from being released in jail. Why would anybody not just face trial in such a corrupt system? This is fucking Mexico at this point. This might as well be Iraq with a court system like this. This guy has had his case dismissed twice at this point. It's been 6.5 years, going on 7. And they still won't let it go. They have got to make an example of Rundo. All they've made him is a fucking hero. God bless this guy. I hope he wins. Hope he wins big. I say that both as a lawyer and as, I hope, his friend. It's been a long time since I've talked to him, but Godspeed, brother. The magistrate judge found that defendant is a danger to the community based on his criminal history and the current charges. In the present case, defendant is charged with organizing and participating in Ram's combat training sessions to prepare to engage in violence at political rallies, and then attending political rallies where he assaulted a police officer and counter-protesters. Defendant also has a New York prior conviction for gang assault, causing serious physical injury. Were this a leftist being charged, they would think all of that is a plus. He's a freedom fighter. He assaulted a cop. previous conviction for a gang assault, and then he turned his life around and made something of himself. This would be a success story were Rob Rundo on the left wing, on the right side of things, the correct side, that is. I'm reminded all the time lately of Solzhenitsyn. Jocko was reading excerpts of his book. He does that on his program. I don't know if you've watched it, but he reads excerpts from these books. Well, he's reading Solzhenitsyn one day. And I realized while watching that particular episode, something I guess I had never really understood before, that we all have this concept of, the Bolsheviks just came in and wiped everybody out, and it was this violent revolution. Just stormed everything, burned everything down, hanged everybody, killed them. That's not at all what happened. It was, in fact, very legal. They had representatives in the government. Everything was changing laws. Everything was the appearance of legal procedure. Everything happened very legally. And there came a point where the law changed so that if you hit somebody, of course it was a battery, but if you hit somebody and they were a member of the party, now it is terrorism. We have officially reached that point. We reached that point years ago. Years ago. Ever since Charlottesville. We are there. You hit a member of the Antifa. You hit a member of the party. You hit a Democrat. You hit somebody on the left. And they allege that it's because they were on the left, which of course they're going to allege. Now you are a terrorist. It's not just a battery. Of course, if they attack you, they're freedom fighters. They're anti-racists. They're all these noble things. They're certainly not terrorists. They're just defending themselves and everyone else in America from you, you evil Nazi terrorist. And it's just like the Soviet Union being this gradual progression. We change the laws. We interpret the laws. We have a new law. We see how far we can go. That gets dismissed. Well, we just keep going. We change this law. We change that law. We reinterpret this. Such that when I was in court 2 days ago in Charlottesville, I had to hear from the judge who pretends he has no idea the connotations of what anti-racist actually means. Argues that, well, aren't all lawyers obligated to be anti-racists under the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution and the Virginia Constitution? Aren't we all required to be anti-racists? How is that a pejorative? It would be amazing for someone in America to not understand the connotations of the word anti-racist, or to pretend with a straight face that the word anti-racist means you're just against racism and that's all that it means, and there's no other meaning for it, and there's no other connotation for it. And yet, that is what happened in open court. We have already gotten there. We're already in the dystopian future. We're already in the future where words mean what the party says it means, where you are a terrorist because you are on the wrong side. We're already there. There's no more waiting for it to come. It's now in open court on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and you're seeing it in real time. And in the Rise Above movement case, real time, because they are looking for Rundo right now as this program is broadcasting live. Even though this court continue with reading the government's emergency motion, even though this court previously reinstated defendant's indictment on February 21st, 2024, the district court dismissed it again, despite the Supreme Court's observation that, quote, the Attorney General and the United States attorneys retain broad discretion to enforce the nation's criminal laws, end quote. A, quote, presumption of regularity supports their prosecutorial decisions, and in the absence of clear evidence to the contrary, courts presume that they have properly discharged their duties, end quote. Yes. In 1996, which is the case they're quoting, United States v. Armstrong, 517 U.S. 456 at page 464, from the year 1996, this U.S. Supreme Court opinion, that might have been true. We still had this notion that, like, well, yeah, we don't like Democrats, or yeah, we're Democrats, we don't like Republicans, or we're conservatives, we don't like those liberals. We're liberals, we hate these anti-science, anti-intellectual Republicans, or whatever. It was still a country in 1996. You can't say these things anymore. To believe that the Attorney General and United States attorneys have broad discretion, or should retain broad discretion, to enforce the nation's laws because there's a presumption of regularity that supports their prosecutorial decisions, that's just not true anymore. There is no presumption of regularity. There cannot be. We have seen since 2017, certainly since 2018, when all the Charlottesville cases started coming out, there is no regularity, and you cannot presume regularity in these prosecutions. The only regularity you can assume is that they are going to charge the right wing and not the left wing. Period. End of story. No qualifications. How many people have you seen since March of last year? How many people on the left wing have been dragged from clear across the country back to Charlottesville to stand trial for the events of August 11th and 12th? Zero. And there never will be, because the only people being prosecuted are the people on the right wing. How many people do you see the DOJ bringing to Washington, D.C. for any alleged crime they may have committed on January 6th? Zero. To my knowledge. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Charlottesville, I'm absolutely right. But J6, I may be wrong. Maybe they did prosecute a left-winger somewhere, and I missed it. Could be. But the general rule would be charitable. But the general rule is, you will be prosecuted if you are on the right wing. You will not be prosecuted if you are on the left wing. Now, we do have certain events. I believe it was in New York, where these two lawyers threw a Molotov cocktail into a cop car. They got charged. Well, okay. You can't piss in the Kool-Aid, as they say, right? Like, you are lawyers and you blew up a cop's car. Come on. Like, we can only let you get away with so much. Like, that is just, it's too far. Too far. You're a symbol. You know, you can't be doing that. But by and large, if you are on the left wing and you are committing these acts of violence, ain't nothing going to happen to you. They're not going to come looking for you. Please. Certainly not 5, 6, 7 years later, chasing you down in foreign countries in Eastern Europe and Latin America. They're not going to waste their time. They're not even going to look out for you when you're in the same state. We have reached that point in America. That's where we are. It is on. Oh. I always wonder, growing up, like, I took Latin when I was in high school, which wasn't just Latin. It was like Roman culture and government and mythology, everything having to do with Rome. And you always wonder, what is it like to live during the fall of an empire? Like, when you are watching Rome fall, what are those people really experiencing in their day-to-day lives? I've wondered that my whole life. You know, like, you hear about these barbarian invasions and statues being torn down and people being assaulted. You hear about the destruction of everything and all these people just coming in and acting like they own the place. And, like, what could that have been like for those people? Like, were they terrified? Did they think it was the apocalypse? I've honestly wondered that my whole life. I make fun of men for thinking about ancient Rome all the time. Like, obviously I think of ancient Rome all day, every day. But that's one of the recurring thoughts I have. What's it like to live at the end of a civilization? We don't have to wonder anymore. We are in it right now as we speak. Real time. So in 1996, maybe you could say there was a presumption of regularity in prosecutions, and we grant these people in the U.S. Attorney's Office, we grant prosecutors in general this broad discretion to bring charges. Can't say that anymore. The government requested a stay of the district court's dismissal order and a stay of defendant's release, but the court denied both and ordered defendant released forthwith. Ugh, the gall of this judge, Nazi sympathizer. And then they're going to get to arguments. Defendant should be ordered detained pending appeal, consistent with the Bail Reform Act. Let's see what other garbage they have. Defendant is a danger and a flight risk. Well, flight risk, I mean, you can't argue with flight risk after he's going to this country and that country. But, you know, you could argue with it. You could say, that he had won the case. He left the country after winning the case. That's not a flight risk. He wasn't ordered not to leave the country, to my knowledge. Why wouldn't you leave the United States after being subjected to that nonsense? Like if you're in Mexico and you get arrested for not committing a crime and they put you through the ringer for years and then finally God reaches his hand down and your case is dismissed and you're let go from a Mexican prison, why would you not leave Mexico immediately? Like a rational person would do the same thing. So if you're Rundo and your case is dismissed and you've just been dragged through the court system for years on a false charge by politically motivated prosecutors, why would you not go to Europe? It's a retarded argument to say that he's a flight risk because of that. At the very least, it's disingenuous. The only findings in the record are that defendant is a danger and a flight risk. The magistrate court found numerous facts warranting detention following defendant's most recent extradition. The defendant was recently residing in a foreign country, previously left the United States multiple times in order to evade arrest, had prior DMV failure to appear, had no confirmed bail resources, has a prior conviction involving violence, and the current charges involve violence as well. Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that prior conviction involving violence was from when he was a kid. And he obviously turned his life around. He should be a success story for these people. I believe I lost the page. Dismissal of defendant's indictment does not require his release. What an amazing statement. Just because you're going to dismiss the criminal charges against him, Judge, that doesn't mean you should let him out of jail. What fucking country is this? Now, they cite Section 3143C, which unequivocally permits continued detention pending an appeal by the government under Section 3731. The exact scenario here. The fact that defendant's indictment was ordered dismissed does not preclude his continued detention. Pending the government's appeal, a court must simply continue the existing detention order or, if necessary, treat the defendant the same way it treats all defendants pending trial by analyzing release or detention in accordance with Section 3142. Amazing. Amazing that the DOJ is complaining to the appellate court that this trial court is not treating Rundo the same way it treats all defendants pending trial by keeping him in jail after an indictment is dismissed. Amazing they're making that fairness argument, saying you're not treating him like the other defendants, while the indictment was dismissed because of selective prosecution. What an amazing lack of self-reflection. Amazing. We are going to prosecute the right wing and the right wing only. Those leftists that were attacking the right wing, they were heroes. We're not going to prosecute any of them. We're going to give them medals. But Rundo and his ilk, we're going to hunt them down for years. There is no place in the globe that you will be safe. We are coming for you. When we get you, it doesn't matter if they dismiss your indictment. We're going to keep you in jail. Oh, but by the way, the trial court judge should treat Rundo like it would any other criminal pending a trial. Can you believe how unfair this judge is to us? the almighty Department of Justice. If it sounds like I take this case personally, it's because I obviously do. I'm still upset about Eason. I'm presently upset about Rundo. This case, like, I've been involved in a lot of political cases, don't get me wrong. My own political case against me. But it's nothing compared to what the feds have done to Rundo and these other guys, but especially Rundo. This is the illustration of everything wrong with the United States of America right now. And for the past, 6.5 years. Let's go to the comments here. Free Rundo. Anti-fascism is not an excuse to break the law. Ha! Well, it is now, buddy. Welcome to the Soviet States of America. Freedom Falcon says Rundo is a based version of Jason Bourne or Carmen Sandiego with all his traveling. I was actually going to call this episode Where in the World is Robert Rundo? I used to play Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid. I used to love that game. Like guessing where she is based on she's got bat guano on her shoes and stuff. That was the coolest game ever when I was a little boy. I was going to call this that, but I thought it would be better to just name it Rise Above Movement. Ulfric. Howdy, Augustus. Glad to see you live good, buddy. Hope all is well. Things are all right. Any fun spring plans? Yeah, fun spring plans. We're going to trial in Charlottesville for much the same reason as these people are hunting down Rundo like a fucking dog right now. Amazing parallel. U.S.-Soviet Constitution, says LP. Yeah, it's really telling. The feds never refer to the Constitution. The feds will always refer to this section, that subsection of the United States Code, and look at this, precedent from this case here. We're just going to take this phrase out and quote it and make it an authority. It's all just this gobbledygook legal gibberish. Which is not to say that the statutes, the U.S. Code, doesn't support what the U.S. DOJ does, because the statutes are out of control. I mean, any lawyer will tell you that same thing, unless they work for the DOJ. Ask any American, ask any lawyer about the IRS code, or just the U.S. Code in general. Nobody knows all those laws. Lawyers don't know those laws. The point of a lawyer is they can look them up for you. Nobody knows those bloody laws. And so they dust off these random things like the Anti-Riot Act. 40 years later, they'll dust it off and say, you know what? Let's get them with that one. Or like in Charlottesville right now, you know what? Let's get them with this obscure law that was passed because of Virginia v. Black, but then we didn't actually use it. Let's use this to go after these guys 6 years later. Judges figured out that there is no counter to their political suppression. Put your kids in law school. Plumbers will not save our people. Says MW2 Freak 7. Yeah. It's important to note how much we need lawyers. You really can't overemphasize that. People would always come to me asking, what's your advice on going to law school? And I always say, don't do it. It's a miserable profession. It's horrible. Don't do it. Highest substance abuse profession in the world. But we're also not going to fix anything without lawyers. Sam says, hey there, are we praying another rosary tonight for Rob's safety? God bless. We do need that. Everybody pray for Rob. Thanks for what you do, says Chimp with a car. Awesome name. How can we help? I honestly don't know. I don't know what you can do for Rob. I don't have a link. I don't know if he's got a defense fund. I know he's got a federal public defender. I don't know what we can do, but I will keep y'all updated. We have got to get out of here. I am super late. Got to go pick up the kids, but it's been real. God bless Rob Rundo. Everybody pray for him. And I don't know. I guess we'll continue with this saga, see what happens next week. Till then, everybody.